Have you looked at your retirement account lately and thought, well, the numbers look decent, so why doesn't it feel like I'm getting ahead? You're not alone. A lot of folks are noticing the same thing, especially if you're on a fixed income or planning to retire soon. See, there's this invisible tax that eats away at your savings every single day. It's not printed on a receipt, it doesn't show up on your statements, but it's there, quietly draining your purchasing power and making the future more expensive by the minute. It's called inflation. And if you think it's just about higher prices at the pump or the grocery store, you're missing the bigger threat. Because inflation doesn't just change what things cost, it changes what your retirement is worth. Let's be honest, when most people hear the word inflation, they think about gas prices, eggs, maybe rent going up, but that's just the surface. The real danger of inflation? It's what it does to your savings without you realizing it. You can have $500,000 tucked away in a 401k and it might feel like you're set. But every year that inflation rises, that money buys a little less, quietly, steadily. And the worst part? No one tells you it's happening. You don't get a notice from your bank saying, hey, by the way, you just lost 8% of your purchasing power this year. It's like filling a bucket with water while there's a leak at the bottom. You keep checking the top and thinking you're okay, but by the time you notice what's really going on, the damage is done. And if you're nearing retirement or already there, you don't exactly have the time to rebuild what inflation takes. Now here's the part no one talks about. Traditional retirement accounts were never designed for this kind of environment. They assume stability, predictability, but we're not in that kind of world anymore. And the longer we pretend that inflation is temporary, the worse it gets for the people who can afford it the least: retirees, savers, and anyone on a fixed income. So what can you actually do about it? First, you need to understand just how deep this problem goes and why the old playbook no longer works. Let's look at the numbers. If inflation rises just 6% a year, which is actually below what we've seen recently, your retirement loses nearly half of its value in just 12 years. Half. That means if you've saved $400,000, it only buys what $200,000 used to. And if you're on a fixed income, that gap doesn't just hurt. It changes everything: where you live, what you eat, and how often you can help your grandkids. Even whether you can afford medical care when you need it most. Now here's what makes it worse. Most financial advisors don't talk about this. They'll show you charts, market returns, even throw in a few optimistic forecasts. But very few talk about purchasing power, the one thing that matters most in retirement. Because what good is a high-performing portfolio if it doesn't buy what you need? At American Alternative Assets, we see this every day. People call us after realizing their savings just don't stretch like they used to. They're not panicking, they're paying attention. They want real answers, not hype, not headlines, and definitely not empty promises from the same system that let this happen in the first place. That's why more and more Americans are moving a portion of their retirement into precious metals IRAs. Not for a quick return, but for protection. Real, tangible, time-tested protection. We're not talking about guessing the market. We're talking about a strategy that's been used for generations. One that doesn't depend on Wall Street or the Fed, and one that's already helped thousands of AAA clients protect, preserve, and prosper, no matter what inflation does next. But how does it actually work? And why are metals so different from everything else? So what does real protection from inflation actually look like? It looks like moving a portion of your retirement savings out of the system that's quietly failing you and into something the government can't print more of. Something real, something tangible. That's where precious metals come in. When you set up a precious metals IRA with American Alternative Assets, you're not betting on gold and silver going to the moon. You're not chasing returns. You're doing what smart people have done for thousands of years, putting part of your wealth into something that holds its value, no matter what happens to the dollar. Gold doesn't need a CEO. It doesn't crash because of earnings reports or stimulus packages. It just sits there, quietly holding purchasing power, even as everything else gets more expensive. And here's the real beauty. When you hold metals inside a retirement account, you're not giving up tax advantages. You're keeping the same structure, only now it's backed by physical assets that aren't subject to the same manipulations. Clients we speak with aren't trying to strike it rich. They're trying to stay independent, to protect their spouse, to make sure their grandkids can inherit something real. They've already played the Wall Street game, and now they want something safer, more private, more grounded. And unlike digital dollars or volatile stocks, your metals are stored securely under your name in IRS-approved depositories. They're not shares on a screen. They're yours, and they're protected from inflation, bank failures, and policy shifts in Washington. But the window for this kind of move isn't going to stay open forever, because if inflation keeps climbing, and if digital currency becomes the new standard, you don't want to look back and realize you could have protected your retirement, but didn't. We'll talk about getting started in a moment, but first, there's something else you need to consider. What happens if you wait? If everything you've heard in this video feels like a wake-up call, that's because it is. The truth is, most people wait too long. They keep telling themselves they'll make a move after the next election, or after the market settles down, or when inflation finally cools off. But inflation doesn't wait. It doesn't pause while you decide. It keeps working, slowly draining the value of every dollar you've saved. At American Alternative Assets, we help people take control quietly, legally, and on their own terms. We walk you through how to move a portion of your IRA or 401k into physical gold or silver without triggering penalties and without giving up your tax advantages. There's no pressure, no big sales pitch, just a clear, step-by-step plan for someone who understands how this system works and how to protect what you've built inside it. Next up, watch this video now, because if you don't understand how inflation is already eating away your retirement, you won't see the damage until it's too late. In this video, I'll show you even how safe accounts are losing value and what most Americans get completely wrong about protecting their savings. If you care about preserving what you've built, you can't afford to miss it.